I've always thought that things like colloidal silver and various other products like that were the realm of, I suppose, the New Age side of our opponents. But I've recently come to experience through my family, of all people, that such things are also the realm of Pentecostal Christians. And I was wondering whether any of the panel had any comment on what seems to be a slightly unholy alliance between the two fields that we seem to oppose most strongly.
And remember, when you talk about colloidal silver, we do not want you to go with blue material.
What was the question?
We couldn't understand we couldn't hear the question.
Can you hear me now?
Well, yeah.
So the question was relating. I was simply asking for comments from any of the panel about a relationship between the use of products which would normally have belonged in the New Age field, whether, as I said, colloidal silver or organic food, but now attached to or embraced by Pentecostal Christians. It seems to be that they. I wouldn't have thought them to be terribly compatible belief systems.
I think the question is whether some of the Christian groups are prone to be victimized in certain ways, and the market for quackery is everybody, and I mean everybody. And people say, well, people ask, well, why are people vulnerable? The answer is that, or what are the things that make people vulnerable? Or the marketplace is not, as many people think, monolithic. It's broken up into all sorts of potential audiences. And there are products and promotions that are pitched to one or more of these. The number is countless. And at times there seem to be identifiable groups that may fall for a particular thing. It may have to do with whether or not one of their members is enthralled and working in a particular community. So I would say that there are certain vulnerabilities of people who have some of the traits that are characteristic of some of the, let's say, what you describe as Christian movements. But the fact is that everybody has vulnerabilities, and there are pitches that are directed to every single one of them.
I just wanted to ask the panel about their opinion of getting out there and writing letters to the editor regarding skeptical topics or articles that have been written. I've had some success at getting letters published, and it's gratifying to see letters, especially in national newspapers. I'm from Canada, and there are two national newspapers, and I've been published in both a few times. But sometimes I feel like I'm sort of throwing it out in the air and it disappears. And I'm wondering if you had any words of encouragement or tips or whatever. So that I think more people should be doing this, because I often see articles that are unanswered.
Yeah, the technique is to keep it A, short, B, succinct, in that it says everything it can in as few words as possible. And the other thing is make sure it's directed to the right person. Just letters to the editor sometimes doesn't do it. If you can find the name of the editor, address it to that person personally, it often will get more attention. The people who can intercept a letter like that often find it just as easy just to drop it into the circular file, the wastepaper basket, and it never gets to the editor. I know on several occasions I've spoken to editors and to TV people like John Stossel. On one occasion, a letter never got to him that I sent to him on email. A comment never got to him because that part of his email was read by other people, and they just didn't consider it to be applicable, and they did nothing about it. So make sure that it gets to the individual if you possibly can direct it that way. And I think that's about the secret of it. And don't be too confrontational. Don't be untruthful, but don't be too confrontational, because a lot of them, they will not get published if they're saying, I know that you're absolutely wrong. If you say something more to the effect of, I disagree with, that's just fine. That they can publish. And their principles often are based upon whether or not somebody says I'm right and they're wrong, or just says I disagree with or I differ with the opinion that was expressed, etc. So a little kinder. I'm not saying honey instead of vinegar. No, I never do that. I'm very direct and forthright and to the point. But the language can be chosen to be more publishable.
You mean you don't yell at them?
Oh yeah, just to add one more thing, and the bigger the newspaper, the more submissions they have. They get the New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post. They get hundreds of submissions every day and only publish a couple. So you're just, it's just a matter of hit and miss, really, and trying it. And timing is everything. They're looking for really, really, really current events. Like the Bush announces something on a Tuesday at 11. They want something, this happened to me, when he announced that they were going to start doing the vaccination for smallpox. And he made the announcement at 9 in the morning. At like 9:30 or 10, the op-ed editor at the LA Times called and said, "Can you get us a piece? We assume you're skeptical of this." I said, "Yeah." "And you'd be against the vaccine?" "Yes." "Okay, so we need something by 2 o'clock. If you can't do it, tell us now because we're going to call somebody else. We need it by 2. It's going in tomorrow, and that's it. After that, it's a dead issue." And that's pretty typical.
Okay, a gentleman from the UK.
Yeah, speaking as an atheist and skeptic,
That's not the case.
how does the panel feel that the 2 times we've had atheist belief systems in charge of the countries, they've both been total disasters? Would it be the case that a Judeo-Christian belief system with freedom of speech is as good as it gets?
What are the countries you refer to?
I was talking to Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union.
Well, wrong on one of those. Nazi Germany was not an atheistic country by any means. However, somebody can make the case that communist China and communist Russia were atheistic. But the problem is not that they were atheistic, that they were communistic. That's the problem. You have to tease out the causal variables. It's not the religion or lack of religion, it's the government that's causing those problems.
And stage right to the rear.
Sorry. Could the group comment on, at the university level, I've run into contacts with the Templeton Foundation, supporting a lot of very questionable science, and they even have a magazine that gets national publicity. Could you speak to their impact on the skeptic movement as you know it?
Did you hear the question?
Templeton Foundation, impact on the skeptical movement. Well, they've never given us any money, so I don't know. I don't think they give you any money, Randy.
Well, on the other case, the other hand, Michael, I've often toyed with the idea because they are offering millions and billions of dollars for proof of life after death and or of God. And I think I could give them a pretty good argument. I'd have to completely prostitute myself, but I could make a few million with that, I think, if I said the buzzwords they wanted to hear. No, I only toyed with the idea, and I discarded it within the first 40 seconds of thinking about it. But, I just wonder if they would consider an article which was critical of that belief. I don't know whether they would. I maybe should experiment and find out. They've got the money, that's for sure. They really have the money.
Well, one thing I'd like to point out, and that is that you can usually spot when a physicist begins running for the Templeton Prize. You can see it in his writings. And the Templeton Prize is large compared to the Nobel Prize. So that's motivation.
Yeah.